Hello everyone, welcome to day 3 of 30 days of iPhone programming tutorials. Now today I'll be teaching you how to make a login screen. So this is a progression of my other tutorial, how to make a password protected app. Now this goes one step further and it adds a username and password combination, so they have to get the right username and a right password in order to get past the screen. So go ahead and head into Xcode and start a new project. Single view is fine. I'm just gonna call this login screen and go ahead and create that. Now go ahead into your view controller or viewcontroller.h, and we're gonna need the two text fields. So UI text field. We're gonna have a username field, and then you can just copy that for a password field. And then we're also going to need a dictionary. Now this is what we're going to be using to manage the usernames and passwords. I'm just going to call this a credentials dictionary. I'll explain more what exactly that is later, once we get into the implementation. Now we're going to need a button action. We're just going to do enter credentials. So that's going to be our code for checking the credentials. You can copy that, and before we go into the .m, we're going to add the button, and we're going to need those two text fields. So make a text field. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to duplicate that and bring it down a little bit. Now this is the enter credentials box or button. So enter credentials. We're just going to distinguish these with placeholder text. So username and password. Now typically what you want to do with password fields is make them secure. So check that box. So that'll block the text as they enter it. So that'll be a username field and a password field, and then the enter credentials button, you want to attach that with touch up inside. Save that, go into your .m. Now we're going to add in the implementation for the enter credentials command, and we're also going to do something in the viewDid load. So go ahead and do credentials dictionary. So that's the dictionary we declared earlier. Now this is going to be an NS dictionary, a lock, and we're going to init with objects for keys. Now the thing you want to know about a dictionary, it's very simple concept. It just stores a bunch of keys, and each key has a value. Now these values, and the values can be the objects that the keys are associated with, can be a multitude of different things. So what we're just going to be using now are basic strings, so just basic text pretty much. So if you think of a username and password combination, if you think of something like Twitter or YouTube, it doesn't really, the important thing is each username has its own password, and each username has only one password that'll work to get you into the site. So we need to set up the array, set up the dictionary in a way that does this. So this is important in deciding whether we use the objects or the keys for the username and password. Now because there's only one password per username, we're going to want to use the key. We're going to want to use the keys for their usernames, because so on a website like Twitter, there can be a bunch of passwords that are the same, but only one password should work for each username. So if you don't understand the logic behind that, just go ahead and put in the usernames in the keys section. So I'm just going to do NS array because it has to be an array. So and it really doesn't make much of a difference. So just say array with objects. Shoot, why isn't it? I'll complete this one first because it's annoying. NS array with objects. Make sure that's plural. Array with objects, and we're gonna have, because this one's the password, because the objects will be the password. I'm just gonna make that lowercase just to make it easier. So this will be password, and then we have to do comma nil because it's an array. And then the same thing here. We're gonna do array with objects and at quotes username. And so that's going to be the dictionary that we're going to check when they enter their credentials. So when they go down here, and we're going to do an if open bracket credentials dictionary we're going to do object for key, and it's going to be the username field dot text. So what this does is it goes and it gets the text from the username field, and then it plugs that into the credentials dictionary, and it finds the object for this key. So if the username field dot text says username, it'll go to the key username and it'll find the object associated with it, which should be password. So the result of this, if the person types in username, that result should be password. And now we're going to check is equal to string, and if we need to check if it's equal to the string that's in the password field. So we're going to do password field dot text. So if the person types in the username field username, and then in the password field password, then they should get a correct entry. And so that'll be this situation is the password is correct, and we're going to add an else in case the password is incorrect. Now I have the project loaded from the previous SDK tutorial that I did, so I'm just going to copy that code in here for the correct password and the incorrect password, just so I don't have to copy all the alert code again. So I'm just going to copy that in here, and because we're doing Arc on this project, we're going to delete that release. So now we should build and run and see whether it works. Okay, so now we have the username and password field. So if we type in a random username and a random password, enter credentials, we get incorrect password. So now we go back, we can type in username like we did. If we still have a random password and we try to enter credentials, it'll give us incorrect. But if we type in password as the password, then we get correct password. Now another thing you can do is you can keep adding username and password combinations. Just make sure they're in the right order. So the first username will be associated with the first password. So if I add another username, let's say Alex, and then if I add a password to that, make sure you add a comma. If I add a password to that, I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. Just make sure they're in the same order, because if they're not, it'll get the passwords and usernames mixed up. So so make sure you don't get those mixed up. Make sure they're in the right order. So because this is first, it'll be the first one with the key here, and because this is second, it'll be with the second one here. So if we build and run again, we can try the new password that I just did, Alex, and 1, 2, 3, 4, enter credentials, and we get correct password. So this is good for if you're doing a basic login screen. If you even want to do a web database or something, you can have a dictionary in there, and you can download that string from your website or whatever, so you can also use this as a basic authentication method. Obviously this isn't anything secure, so don't use this for something that will be used by many people. Just use this as a basic thing, whatever you want really. So thanks for watching this tutorial, and I will see you all tomorrow. The source code for this project, as well as the code for all my other iPhone SDK tutorials, can be found on xcode.iminicrispy.com.